AMD is winning. So not too long ago, AMD was really relegated to the bargain bin of laptops. However, now, if you want to buy a high-end laptop, Team Red have some of the best options out there. So when HP reached out and wanted to sponsor a video on their brand new Ryzen Mobile 4000 series laptops, it seemed like the perfect time to explore exactly how, in the matter of just a couple of years, AMD were able to leapfrog Intel not only on the desktop side, but even on the laptop front. Now, of course, this video is sponsored by HP, but that sponsorship has no bearing on the facts and how we actually got to this point. So for many years, Intel were absolutely dominant. Intel would bring out a brand new generation of processors that would shrink the process node to improve that performance and that efficiency, as well as redesign their cores to give you more and more performance. And this is something that we saw for almost a decade straight, up until just a little while ago. And especially at the end of that kind of run of just complete and total dominance, AMD were in rough shape. They had some okay desktop chips, but on the laptop side, I mean, they really were what you would find in the budget systems and not much more beyond that. Thankfully, AMD didn't waste their time wandering in the wilderness. So back in 2006, they made a very smart decision by purchasing ATI, the graphics company, therefore giving us AMD Radeon graphics as a major counterpoint to the AMD CPU side of the business. Now, there are a few reasons for this, one of which was to actually sell an APU, which was, especially for laptops, a huge deal. Now, what this meant was that they could sell you a single chip that would have not only your AMD CPU cores, but also your AMD graphics built into one, which would give you major advantages in not only performance, but also in power efficiency. Now, they were certainly not the only company to think about something like this. So Intel had integrated graphics for a long time. However, it's only been very recently that they actually put major effort into making those graphics better. And even in the dark days where AMD was well behind in most categories, at the very least, they did have better graphics than Intel, generally speaking. However, it wasn't until a little ace up their sleeve called Zen came around that they really had all the seeds and all the things they needed to potentially catch up, and ultimately they absolutely did. The advent of Zen, the CPU core inside of a Ryzen processor, was a huge step forward. Essentially, AMD totally jettisoned all of their old school design of their previous CPUs, which put frankly just were not competitive, in favor of a much more modern processor that had a lot more performance. But at the same time that they were making a huge step forward, they had a massive stroke of luck. Intel started running into some problems. While AMD were able to deliver their Ryzen processors at 14 nanometer, then 12, and now 7, unfortunately, Intel were stuck on 14 nanometer for a very long time, and that older process node simply held everything back. Which leads us to today, where we have hit the very rare time in the PC space where not only are AMD and Intel competitive, but on a lot of different ways, AMD actually has a major advantage right now. So since I have a pretty wide variety of Ryzen-powered laptops thanks to HP, I think it's a perfect time to really explore just how far AMD has come. So on the AMD side, I have the HP EliteBook 845, which has the high-end Ryzen 7 Pro 4750U, which features a full 8 cores and 16 threads inside a 15-watt form factor, as well as I have the HP ProBook 445, which also has 8 cores, but this is with the Ryzen 7 4700U. Over on the Intel side, they actually have recently announced their 11th generation mobile processors. However, as of recording this video, they're still a little ways out from actually being released, so we'll have to wait and see exactly how they stack up. But for now, I have a couple of 10th gen laptops available. First of all, I have their slightly older school style Skylake based Core i7-10810U, which actually packs a full 6 cores and a 15-watt form factor. However, the graphics, as you'll see shortly, are definitely of the older school variety. On the other hand, we have a Core i7-1065G7 powered laptop, and this has 4 cores of their new Sunny Cove 10 nanometer based chip. However, while it does have better GPU, as you'll see, it is down on CPU compared to everything else here in this comparison. So it's a little bit of a not mixed up. I don't think that's necessarily the best way of putting it, but it's a little bit more fragmented, I suppose, on the Intel side, because 10th gen doesn't just mean 10th gen at the moment. There are 2 very different families of CPUs. The ones that end in U are the older school, and the ones that end in G, either G3, G5, or G7, are the newer 10 nanometer chips, but they actually, as you'll see shortly, have their own pros and cons. So running through the benchmarks, you can see that AMD pretty much take a clean victory. So on the CPU front, they have a little bit of an advantage on the single-threaded side, but specifically because they just have so many more cores and that same TDP, they're able to really take advantage of multi-threading applications such as video editing, rendering, anything like that. You're going to see an advantage on the AMD side. Now on the graphics side, it's a little bit more complicated. So the older school Intel, the 10810U, is very much sort of falling behind here. Now the latest generation Intel 10th gen graphics are actually pretty decent, but even those pretty decent graphics can't quite hold a candle to what AMD are able to have on their Ryzen processors. So yeah, when you look at performance, it is very clear that AMD has not only just caught up, but they have actually taken a pretty major step forward. Now look, I am a huge fan of the speeds and feeds. However, great silicon is nothing if you don't put it in great hardware. So that's where HP's brand new AMD powered lineup really comes in. Unlike in previous years, AMD has decided, for what I assume are a lot of the reasons I just went over, to heavily invest in AMD options up and down their lineup this year. Now I will say that these are very much designed for small businesses and enterprise customers, which means that a lot of these laptops have features that you just simply don't normally see. For example, take the HP EliteBook 845 G7. Now, not only can you outfit it with the top-of-the-range Ryzen 7 Pro processors, but you also have features such as HP SureView available. So with a single press of the button, I can not only sort of knock out any kind of peeping eyes if someone wants to see what I'm doing on my laptop, but then all I have to do is tap it again and I have full view of my laptop. Especially helpful if you're in like an airplane seat or something. Although unfortunately it's probably not too common at the very second. You've also got a redesigned keyboard, which features a cursor nub as well as a programmable key to launch whatever app you'd like. You also do have not only facial recognition support, but also a fingerprint sensor through Windows Hello, and a good selection of ports. Not only a couple of USB-A ports, but also 2 USB-C as well as a full-size HDMI. And of course, one of the advantages of these new Ryzen processors is that they are very power efficient. So you can get up to 26 hours of battery life on this guy, and when it is time to top off, 30 minutes of charge will get you 50% battery capacity. Now if you want something a touch smaller, there's the ProBook X360 435. Now as the name implies, this is a full convertible design, so you can use it in tablet mode. And not only do you have a little cover for the webcam here, but there's also an optional second camera which will actually go on the keyboard, which will give you the ability to take photos, videos, video calls, all that kind of stuff in tablet mode. Now when you flip it back over to full laptop mode, what you'll see is this keyboard is very robust. Something that HP spends a lot of time on is making sure that you can sanitize this keyboard multiple times a day for a very extended period of time, and you won't have any kind of issues with it falling apart or like the labeling come off or whatever. It's meant to really be used in a very sort of 2020 kind of way, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Then there's the ProBook 445, which uses an aluminum build to give you a little bit of that extra durability. And on top of that, like with these other laptops, it does take advantage of HP's Essential Security, which gives you lots of protection against malware and viruses, not only inside the operating system, but even below the hoods for things like your BIOS will actually be able to self-heal itself if there are any problems. Last but not least, there's the ProBook 635 Aero G7. Now what really makes this one special is the weight. At less than 1 kilogram, this is the lightest AMD-powered business laptop out there, and it really goes to show. I mean, this thing is incredibly portable. Now on top of that, you have a number of interesting features, including several different screen options, including a 1-watt panel that will go up to 400 nits of brightness. There's of course the privacy shield if you want that, and you can even option this out with a 1000 nit brightness display, which in layman's terms is really bright. On top of that, you have a very wide-angle webcam, and you have things like Windows Hello, you have a little cover if you want to cover that webcam up, you have facial recognition through Windows Hello as well as fingerprint. There's a lot going for this laptop and a very thin form factor. No matter if you're looking at desktops or laptops, it is clear that AMD have made some major strides recently, and props to HP for recognizing that and offering a pretty wide lineup of different AMD options inside their devices. Of course, if you're interested in any of the laptops I talked about in this video, they will be available at the link in the description. But if I can leave you with anything, it is this. Competition is absolutely a good thing. And now that AMD are really on top of their game, it is also pushing Intel to sort of up what they're able to do as well. And the end benefit there is that we all get better stuff. So it is hard to be upset with some of the biggest laptop upgrades we've seen in many years.